Okay, so I'm assuming everyone can hear me and see me and everything is great. So again, thank you so much for attending the KISS Patent webinar on VR and AR, virtual reality and augmented reality. Is it too late to get a patent? So this is me. I'm Devorah Graeser. I'm the founder and CEO of KISS Patent. I'm U.S. patent agent, meaning I'm admitted to the U.S. patent bar. You can look me up at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. My registration number is 40,000. I have 21 years of patent experience, so I've been doing this for quite some time. I've been through both .com booms and busts. Now we're on number 3. We'll have to see where that one takes us. I programmed with the Human Genome Project, but I was also in-house as the Vice President of Intellectual Property at a company called CompuGym. So I know what it's like to need to protect your valuable ideas and your market with patents, but with a limited budget and, of course, the need for strategy. So I've been on both sides of the table. This is what happens when you spend too much time hanging out with lawyers. Nothing in this presentation or in any material provided, whether verbally or in writing, constitutes legal or patent advice. I don't know if you realize this, but I've done some research and companies are filing VR and AR patents really quickly. What I mean by this is there's been an acceleration in the tendency of companies to want to protect their VR and AR ideas. So the number of patent applications publishing in this area are increasing very fast, as are the number of issued patents. Sony, Microsoft, and Samsung each have hundreds of patents in this area alone. I'm not talking about even everything else they're doing, just in the VR, AR area. Apple and Facebook through Oculus Rift are catching up. They've been filing quite a few patent applications for hardware, but also software and also systems, and I'll get into the difference between those soon. So we have a lot of players with very deep pockets. All of these companies have a ton of money, and they're all filing as many patents as they can, as quickly as they can. About 1,000 patents may be granted in the US alone in 2017. Now, actually, this number was based on some research I did. I looked at it again recently. The number may actually be higher by the end of 2017. And this is simply the granted patents. This doesn't even talk about the huge number of patent applications which have been filed and which have been published so we can see them, which haven't yet been granted. They're waiting to be examined in most cases. There is such a huge backlog that the US Patent and Trademark Office simply can't get through them all quickly. If not, I would have actually expected more patents to have been granted in the US, simply because there's so many companies filing. So the question that people ask me is, can you still protect your VR and AR ideas? And specifically, can you still protect them with a patent? Yes, but there's always a but in these things. You have to be the first to file your patent. The way the patent system works is first to file wins. Even if you're one day later than someone else, you lose. Now, what's really important to know about this, it's not only who files first. Rather, it's only who files first, but it's not who actually works the most on their idea. So what do I mean by that? Let's suppose that I work on my VR idea for 2 years. I'm working on it really hard and it's really complicated. And finally, I file for a patent. But you file for the same or a similar idea a day before me. Well, you're first to file, you win. It doesn't matter if you only worked on your idea for 1 month and I worked on my idea for 2 years. That doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is who files first. Now, one issue is you won't know who has filed which patents for 18 months. Why is that? Because patent applications only publish 18 months from the first day of filing. So there's this 18-month black hole where no one knows who's filed what. This is true for everybody. It's not just that you can't see what other people have filed within that 18-month period. No one else can see what you filed as well. So if you do a search for other people's patents, you'll have this 18-month period where you're not going to see what's going on. That's one reason I emphasize so much the rate at which these patent applications are being filed and the fact that the rate is accelerating so much. Because we can't see what happened in the past 18 months. We have to wait for 18 months to elapse before we can see what people filed. For that reason, it's really important to look at how quickly people are filing, what are the rates of filing, And as I said before, the rates of filing for patents for VR and AR, particularly in the US, but also in other countries, are increasing really quickly. So it's possible that if you have your VR, AR idea right now, that someone else could be working on a similar idea. You don't know this, and you also don't know when they would plan to file. And in fact, it's possible that you would both file it around the same time and not know it, unfortunately. But again, first to file wins. So what do you want to protect for your VR and AR idea? Well, I'm going to start off with software, because software includes a lot of different kinds of ideas, and because many times it's possible, obviously for the same hardware platform, to have a lot of different software ideas. And of course, you don't have to develop your own hardware platform in this space to have great software ideas. So a lot of my clients are focusing on the software space for VR and AR. And I would put software into two different categories. One is very technical software. What do I mean by this? Well, this is the software that, for example, does the rendering. This is the software that enables people to understand where they are when they're walking around a room. This is the software that enables people to play games. This is the software that, say, for AR, might enable someone to look at a device and then see an overlay through their AR glasses about what it does. How does it work? What more information can you get about it? I would describe these as all being technical in the sense that they require a technical innovation. Now, there's also business method patents. What are business method patents? They protect the application of known technology to a new commercial or business problem. Oh, and I already see I have a question. Let me just see what that is. Ah, yes, someone is mentioning the 18-month gap. Yes, indeed, it is a super big black hole. And there is a risk, you're right, when there's a huge backlog and you don't know if something similar has already been filed. That is unfortunately the case, but everyone else is in the same boat as you. Oops, sorry about that. That is one reason why I emphasize filing quickly. And it's not possible to have certainty around this. Here, let me just go back to that slide. All right, come on, there we go. It's not possible to have certainty around this. On the other hand, if you file and part of your ideas are covered by someone else's patent, but part is not, then at least you still have that part. One of the reasons why it's important to file, even with this huge black hole of this huge backlog and no one knows what's in there, is at least if you file, you have a seat at the table. Yes, someone else may have filed before you, but if you don't file, then there's no way you can protect your idea with a patent, and you also can't use a patent for defensive purposes, which we'll get to in a minute. How to use a patent as a shield, to shield yourself from being attacked by others. So if you don't file, you don't have a seat at the table, you can't possibly have a defense, and you also can't possibly protect your ideas. That's why I tell people, though, that it's important to file quickly, to file with as much information as you have, and then you just have to unfortunately wait and see how it pans out. There's no better solution to this. All right, so getting back to what to protect in the business method. So for the business method, when you're protecting the commercial applications of technology, what could this mean is, let's suppose we get back to the idea of, you look at an object with AR and you see some information about it. And you decide that you want to use this for a particular kind of commercial idea, maybe for a technical manual. So someone looking at a new device, they don't know how to use this device. They look at it through AR, whether glasses or just with their cell phone, like Pokemon Go. And they see the information that they need. They get that information. They can request more information. It can be given to them in various ways. So depending on how you structure that kind of solution, that's more of a business method. Because the technology to do so, to when someone looks at an object, have information kind of appear about the object, that is already out there. People are talking about this, about different ways for education, for technical training. There's a lot of information out there on how this can be used in the AR space. So that would be a business method application, applying the technology to this new business problem, which could be in a very specific technical space, B2B education, for example. Both types are patentable in the US. Now, of course, another thing you'd want to protect is hardware. This can also include chips. There have been some new folks coming out with some new chips to try to make VR in particular, because of the rendering, it can be quite slow to try to make it go faster. Hardware, of course, can also include headsets. And then software and hardware combinations. These are systems. So you put the hardware and the software together. One other point I'd like to emphasize is in B2C versus B2B. So B2C is business to consumer. That's where you're selling the product to the end consumer. And there you're thinking about a particular solution of how the consumer would want to buy it, how they'd want to use it. Of course, it would need to be easier to use in many ways. While many consumers are willing to go through a lot of work to use their products, most consumers want a frictionless existence. Whereas in B2B, you have to deal with enterprise. How does enterprise want to consume things? How does it already connect to or interact with existing enterprise systems? So that's on the B2B side. So these are some big questions to consider. What's your market? Who are they? How much effort or friction are they willing to tolerate? All of these things are important in deciding what to protect in this space. And all of these things are protectable in the VR and AR space. Not everything has been patented yet. In terms of strategy, it's important to think about the VR AR ecosystem. Now, this ecosystem is not only technical in nature, but it's also a business ecosystem. So your company, your startup, exists within this ecosystem. You buy from suppliers, you sell to others, you have partners. Within this ecosystem of technology and business, you need to protect those ideas that will enable you to function the best within the ecosystem. They'll give you the most protection and also allow you to have defensive patents and not just ones offensive where you'd actually go and attack people, but defensive patents which would act as a shield against someone attacking you. So your company needs to function within this ecosystem generally. You have to be able to make deals with partners. So if you have some technology that you might want to work with a partner, maybe in a joint venture, maybe you want to license it out, that technology should probably be protected in a separate patent from other technology that you want to keep for yourself. And the reason for that has to do with how licenses work for patents. In general, it's much easier to license an entire patent, not just part of it. So when you're making deals with partners, you want to kind of hive off or separate that technology into a separate patent so you have the most flexibility to make the deals with partners. You also want to block competitors from entering your market niche. And we'll get into this in a moment, but patents are the only form of idea protection that allow you to block others from entering your market niche. So your patents should definitely do that. If you have a market niche that you've defined and you want to protect it, you don't want competitors coming into it. And this can be extremely lucrative. There are many companies who've actually reached unicorn status on the basis of having patents and being able to protect a very specific, very narrowly focused market niche. You want to defend your company against infringement. Now, just because you have a patent doesn't mean you have freedom to operate. That is, it doesn't mean you don't necessarily infringe other people's patents. But if you have a patent and another company accuses you of patent infringement, then you can counter-accuse them of infringing your patents. So here, patents act as more of a defense. And indeed, some companies have made public announcements they will only use their patents defensively. Twitter's an example. Also Tesla, Elon Musk in a blog post stated, all our patents are belong to you, which of course is the meme based on all your base are belong to us. What Elon Musk said was that if you, my competitors, he's addressing to competitors and others who want to focus in this space, if you don't attack us, we won't attack you with our patents. And obviously you'd have to make a deal for this to stick, but the idea is that he did not want to block innovation, but he also didn't want to get sued himself. So that's actually quite a common reason why you should want to file for patents, particularly in the US, by the way. The US is heavily litigious, and patent lawsuits in the US are very expensive, and the damages are huge. RIM, Research in Motion, founder of and producer of the BlackBerry, which used to be very popular, they were hit with patent damages almost $1 billion. I believe they were actually reduced upon appeal. But $1 billion is a lot of money. So other patent damages and other patent lawsuits I've seen, typically in the hundreds of millions. That's very typical for damages. So patent lawsuits in the US have much higher damages than in other countries. Hundreds of millions of dollars is nothing to sneeze at. Patents also can support your exit strategy. So your company's function within the ecosystem. Let's say you're bootstrapping now. That's great, but maybe at some point you want to raise money. Patents can help you do that as well. Patents increase your startup's valuation by $1 million. This is a rule of thumb used by VCs. I've seen it all over the internet. I'm actually not certain who came up with it first, but I've seen many VCs post about it, and I've had many other VCs tell me that they also use this as a rule of thumb. Also, in terms of supporting your exit strategy, it will also help you to sell your company or to have an IPO. We can go into that in a bit more if you have questions on that, but basically patents are very supportive of your company as it functions within the ecosystem. So when do you want to protect your idea? Well, of course, sooner is better than later, but there's some very specific rules about when you need to file for your idea. And if you don't follow those rules, then you will lose your patent rights. So outside the US, you must file for a patent before you publish your idea. A publication can be anything that makes your idea public. So it could be a TED Talk, it could be posting a video on YouTube, it could be selling your app or even offering it for sale. It could be putting some information on your website about how your app will work, putting out a white paper, any kind of public talk would be considered to be a publication. So you need to file for a patent before you publish your idea if you want to get patent protection outside the US. In the US, you can file for up to 1 year after publication. So in the US, you want to either publish fast or file fast. The reason why is publication gives you, and only you, a 1 year grace period to file for your patent. Filing fast, of course, means that you file fast. So either way in the US, you will come out on top within the US system. But outside the US, filing fast is the only thing that counts. Once you've published, you cannot file for your patent outside the US. Also, as I noted before, patent applications publish 18 months after filing. So you file for your patent and you don't really know what's going to happen, but then again, neither does anybody else. Where to protect? Patents are a per country right. So if you want to have patent protection in the US, you must file in the US. But your competitors in China can copy your idea in China and make, use, and sell it in China if you don't file for a patent in China. So where you want to file depends on where you want to do business and also where your competitors are. Where you want to do business is very important because you want to prevent competitors in those countries in particular from copying your ideas. Where your competitors are is important because if you don't file where your competitors are located, they could develop the idea and sell in their own home country, and then they could try to sell in other countries where maybe you didn't file, but they could still try to get business from you. They could conceivably also sell in the country you did file if your patent wasn't broad enough. So again, you want to block competitors in as many countries as possible. One example for where many of my VR/AR clients want to file is these four countries: US, China, Europe, and South Korea. The South Koreans are becoming very strong in this area. Some people also had Taiwan. So Taiwan and mainland China, they're different, and also Hong Kong and China are different. If you want to have protection in Hong Kong, you have to file separately, but that's quite inexpensive, and you can do it as part of the Chinese patent process. With a separate filing, but again, it's tied to what goes on in China. So I would recommend at least considering these countries. You don't have to file them all simultaneously. You can start by filing in one country, and then within 1 year, you continue the process. So here's an example. You want to protect in those 4 countries, but filing in those 4 countries would be really hard because China and South Korea require translations. For that reason, they're expensive. Europe is expensive just because it's expensive. Yes, I know Europe is not one country. I'm aware of this fact. But for the purpose of a patent, it's considered to be one country. So this is all very expensive. How can you afford it as a startup? Well, we'll get into the whole process soon. But just as a heads up, you can start in one country, filing in the US. Then within 1 year, you can either file directly in other countries, or you can file an international application called the PCT, Patent Cooperation Treaty Application, that allows you to buy another 1.5 years to file in all the other countries. So what you do is you file in the US first at time equals 0. Within 1 year, you file that international application. Within 2.5 years of when you filed in the US, you would then file in China, Europe, and South Korea. Are there any questions on this process? I can answer specific questions now, or if you put your email address either into the Q&A or into the chat, then I can get back to you to set up a specific time to speak. So do let me know. I'm happy to speak with you one-on-one. If your question's a bit sensitive, you want to ask it kind of offline in a separate phone call, please let me know. Give me your email address. I'll be happy to be in touch with you. All right, yes, there is I see a question about publication versus the 1-year filing date. So the way it works is the publication has nothing to do with what countries you're going to file in or how you decide to continue the process. The publication just runs independently. 1 year from your first date of filing, your patent application will publish. So if you decide to file in the US first, within 1 year you file that PCT application. That PCT application will publish 18 months from your first filing date. If you decide you don't want to file in another country outside the US, but you want to file your regular US patent application, because I recommend a provisional, which we'll get to at the end. Let's say you decide to file a regular US patent application at the end of the year, then that will publish 18 months from your first filing date, which is your initial or priority filing date. So the 1 year date is functions in a few cases. One is that Graeser I talked about, US only, publish. You can only file in the US only within 1 year. The 1 year date also is if you want to file in the US and then file in other countries, you have that 1 year date. And then if you want to file a provisional application in the US, we'll get into what that is at the end. It's an inexpensive way of filing. Then again, within 1 year, you have to file in any further country you want or file that international application. The only way you can avoid publication, because I see this question came up also, the only way you can avoid publication is if you only file in the US and you then request a non-publication of the application until it becomes a patent. Otherwise, it'll publish. But that's actually good for you. Publication is good because it allows your competitors and VCs and others to see what you've done. It's an advertisement for your technology. Some people do choose to keep it secret. Personally, I'm in favor of publishing. I think it's great to kind of stake your claim and let everyone know what you're up to. If you file outside the US, though, it has to publish. All right, any country outside the US, the patent application must publish within 18 months. Okay, any more questions? Okay. So don't get bitten by IP. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, what you don't know can hurt you when it comes to idea protection. And this is becoming particularly true in the VR and AR space. These spaces are getting very competitive. They're becoming commercially competitive. Whenever something becomes commercially competitive, that area also becomes competitive in patents and other forms of idea protection as well. Basically, competitors will compete with whatever tools they have at hand. And one of those tools is patents and other forms of idea protection. So Oculus was sued for patent infringement. Not knowing about a patent, though, isn't a defense. You can't say, well, I didn't know. Well, too bad. Unfortunately, that's the answer. Just because you don't know about a patent doesn't mean you can't be sued for patent infringement. Now, patent infringement is not for talking about ideas. It's for making, using, selling, importing, exporting, offering to sell a product, software, hardware, something like that, all right? So that's a really important point to note, that you have to be doing something, out there commercially. And it's only in every country where, let's say, a competitor has a patent. So let's suppose you were to sell your product in Australia. Your competitor doesn't have a patent in Australia. They do have a patent in the US. Well, you could sell your product in Australia, but you couldn't sell it in the US if that would mean trespassing on or infringing the competitor's patent. This is a really big problem for startups because they could be blocked from selling their products due to patents of others. And again, another reason why to file for your own patent. So you have a seat at the table and you have a defense. VR startups need patents. for this reason. Well, actually, for this many reasons. You want to increase your valuation. You want to have a defense. You want to be able to protect your ideas. You want to help with your exit. There's a startup called NextVR. They have 24 patents and applications. 14 were published in 2016 alone. That statistics may actually be even more now because I haven't checked it in the past couple of months. They've been filing and publishing quite regularly. And of course, patents can be a defense against big company patents because if they accuse you of infringement, you can accuse them of infringement. And often what happens in these cases, you'll exchange licenses. Copyright is also important. Copyright is another form of idea protection. It protects content, so music, videos, stuff you've written. VR and AR apps that use music or images of others could be liable for copyright infringement. Now, I'm talking specifically here about the Pirates of the Caribbean AR app. This was an AR app ran on your cell phone. When you held up the cell phone with the app running, camera side out, obviously, screen side towards you, toward a poster of the Pirates of the Caribbean showing Captain Barbossa, who was one of the characters. It would replace Captain Barbossa's face with that of Lloyd Blankfein, who was head of Goldman Sachs, and would call him like the biggest pirate. And that was the idea. The idea is that he's the biggest pirate. So there could be some issues there with copyright infringement. It could also be considered to be fair use because it's a form of political expression as well. But you should just simply realize that if you're using music or images of others, you could be liable for copyright infringement as well. And so be aware of that and take steps to protect yourself. Also, don't forget trademarks. The AR, VR apps, just like any other kind of app, you can't use brand names or logos without permission. So the best defense in this case is find out your rights first, understand what the rights of others are, and really have a detailed discussion with someone who understands trademarks, copyright, and patents, just to be certain that you're not accidentally trespassing on someone else's rights. So why file for your patent? So we've talked a bit about how patents can help you. Generally, we've talked a bit about different kinds of idea protection. Why should you file for your patent? Patents give you control. You can decide how others will use your idea. You can block others from patenting your idea. So here's an example. Let's suppose you file first before someone else, then you could block them from patenting your idea and then blocking you. Deciding how others can use your idea, well, that's quite straightforward. Let's say you decide that you are willing to allow nonprofits to use your idea for free or at a very reduced license fee or rate. Well, that's great. A patent enables you to do that. Otherwise, it's very hard to enforce your ideas that, hey, you want commercial entities to pay more and nonprofits to pay nothing or less. Patents help you decide that. Patents also can keep big companies from stealing your idea. Apple under Steve Jobs was notorious for borrowing other people's ideas. And he was always going on, of course, about how artists, they borrow, they copy, and it's not so great if it's your idea. I can just maybe tell you that much. Microsoft also tends to, quote unquote, borrow, that is, say, copy other people's ideas as well. A big company will do this, and if you don't have a patent, you have no way to defend yourself. But if you do have a patent, you can defend yourself. So it's really important that you file for patents to defend yourself against big companies or simply startup competitors who have a lot of money. Here's an example of PicSite. They came up with the first native iOS app for photo editing and sharing. And they had a lot of really great ideas, but they didn't have a lot of marketing budget. So another company called Lightricks came along, and they basically stole all of PicSite's ideas. They copied them. PicSite hadn't filed for any patents, so they had no defense against Lightricks. And Lightricks actually had a huge marketing budget, so they were able to swamp PicSite. So even though PicSite was the one who originated the innovation, Lightricks ultimately made much more money off of it. And of course, patents help your exit strategy. One very typical exit strategy for my clients is having a sale that is to say acquisition. Of course, you can go IPO, initial public offering. If you do decide to do this, patents are also helpful there. But most of my clients have been acquired. That's how they've had their exit. So big companies typically want to buy a mini-me. And big companies usually have patents. In fact, they pretty much always have patents. There was a study once that showed that nearly every software company at the time of filing for their IPO had patents. It's just very unusual to not have patents. FOMO is also helpful with patents. FOMO is fear of missing out. You don't want someone else to get your patents. That is, the big company that might buy you, they wouldn't want someone else to get your patents and then possibly go against them with your patents. So again, FOMO is very important for startups when they're being sold, and to not only get sold, but also, quite frankly, to increase the acquisition price. For big companies, it's better to buy your startup than to copy if you have patents. If you have patents and they copy your ideas, you could sue them. There are ways to do this with what's known as contingency, so you only have to pay if you win, and you pay from the fees which are achieved. And there also are investors who invest in lawsuits as well, so even smaller companies can defend their patents. And of course, having patents increases the valuation of your startup, which can help the sale because they can make it much easier for both sides to reach a price that both sides think is fair. So patents in general do help a sale, and that can help your exit strategy. So what kind of patents do big companies love? Not all patents are created equal. So most valid patents, they do two things. They protect the core of your business, and they block competitors from entering your market niche. So again, FOMO is a big factor here. Big cos want to buy startups with patents that would protect this core, so someone can't come and take the technology that the big company just paid a lot of money for and use it. And of course, to be able to block competitors. So what idea do you want to protect in the VR AR space? You want to protect the heart of your business. This is the part of your business that if you lost it, if a competitor copied it, if it was stolen, you couldn't do without it. It would destroy your business to not have this idea or ideas. You also, however, want to patent anything the user experiences. Now, I'm sure you've heard this time and time again. Users want to buy solutions and not products. They want to buy the hole in the wall and not the drill to make the hole in the wall. They'll buy the drill from you if they understand from you that that will enable them to have the hole in the wall that they want. So the same thing is true in the VR and AR space. Users want to buy solutions. So I'm sure you guys have a lot of great stuff going on behind the scenes, in the back office, whether locally or on the server, doesn't matter. That's not what the user cares about. What the user cares about is their experience. So anything that the user experiences should be protected. And the reason why is that that is what will keep the user sticking to your idea, to your solution, and not going to another one. If you can protect that user experience and keep others from copying it, then the users will stay with you. So you have to think about it from the perspective also of the user. What are they experiencing? How are they using your product? What interests them? What part of the solution is attractive to them? Don't wait to file, because someone else could file first and block you. And just like this road closed, if someone else files before you, then you're toast. You can have filing differences between two filing dates being extremely small. I've seen differences of 2 weeks. Snapchat, now Snap, had a 19-day difference with a competitor. They're filing under the old rules, where it wasn't first to file, but under the new rules, only one of them would have won. They could have lost, Snapchat could have lost this very valuable patent that they had where you hold down the camera, it toggles to video. They could have lost that because of that 19-day filing difference. So again, you don't want to wait to file. You don't want to be on the wrong side of that 19-day filing difference or even that 1-day filing difference. Don't file too late. If you have a great idea, you have to file fast, or else someone could file before you. With the number of VR and AR patent applications, the filings accelerating so much, it's important to get your patent in before someone else ends up basically filing your idea. Now, this can happen not just through direct copying, but can also happen because a lot of times great ideas come out into the ether. Calculus was invented simultaneously in more than one location. And it wasn't that one had copied from the other. It was simply that once ideas get into the ether, once people start talking about things, very similar ideas can be filed. So you want to make certain you're the one who files first. All right, any questions before we go on with how to file your patent? Again, I'd just like to emphasize, if you do have questions you don't feel comfortable asking now as part of the webinar, please put in your email address either in the Q&A or else in the chat. And I would be happy to have a separate call with you later on to answer all of your questions specifically for you. So you can ask those kind of private questions you don't want to ask now. Okay, great. So now we're going to talk about how to file your patent. Patents provide the broadest protection for your idea. They're the best defense against copycats because only patents can actually protect the core of your idea, but also the surrounding. And what do I mean by that? Patents don't only protect exactly how you implement it. They don't protect only how you implement the hardware exactly or how you code the software exactly. Patents protect the general idea. And as a result, you can basically protect your idea as an idea, not just as a technical implementation, but only with patents. You can also block competitors from entering your market space with this. Here's one example. Infinidat, they're a data storage unicorn. They have over 70 patents filed, and they were able to raise $1 billion. The reason why they filed for so many patents is they have data storage with very, very high uptime, 99.99999, whole bunch of other 9% reliability. So they filed for a ton of patents in many countries to be able to protect this technology, which is what people basically pay them for. And they have customers like Bank of America who work with them for this reason. So they filed for patents to be able to protect the core of their idea so that someone else, another company, can't come along and copy their ideas for this very high uptime data storage. So the more patents you file, the more you're able to protect the core of your idea. And again, just to emphasize, they did file in multiple countries because they knew they had competitors in multiple countries, and they didn't want to have their idea or their market space be lost in a particular country. So what is patentable? Well, anything under the sun made by the hand of man or woman. This is actually a quote from a 1970s, I think 71, US Supreme Court case on bacteria. Could genetically engineered bacteria be patentable? The Supreme Court said yes, and this is the quote. Software, hardware, and high tech are all examples of ideas that fit into a patentable category. Also mechanical devices, chemicals, drugs, proteins, etc. So basically what we're talking about here is technology. Technology is what is patentable. So if your idea is technology-based, it is much more likely to be patentable, or at least to fall within the patentable category. Oh, I see a question. Yes, the Alice decision for software. Okay. In the US, it pretty much used to be anything goes with software patents. I mean, really anything goes. And then a couple years ago, the Supreme Court in the US handed down the Alice patent decision, which said that software couldn't be abstract. It couldn't just be an abstract idea, had to have a real world application, had to have real technology. All that this meant was that software patents actually had to show a connection to real world technology and a connection to something happening in the real world, not just some kind of abstract, vague idea. What does this mean? It means your patent has to be written so that the idea is specific. No more vague general descriptions. You have to give concrete examples. You have to use concrete technology that's specific. You don't have to limit it to the exact implementation, but there has to be a clear tie to some kind of technology. And the fourth really important point is it also depends on how your patent is written. So you can take the same idea, write it two different ways, and one way be patentable and the other way not. It is still a bit confusing. The lower courts, including the federal courts of appeal, kind of swung the pendulum back the other way last year. In the second half of last year, there were a huge number of patent decisions that went in favor of the software patent holder or owner. So the court swung back and said, no, wait, a lot of software actually really is patentable. These patents are valid. So we're kind of still in flux. I've spoken with more than 30 different patent examiners at the US Patent and Trademark Office about this issue. I have gotten 30 different opinions. If you don't file, whether from fear of the Alice decision or anything else, then for sure you won't get a patent. At least if you file for a patent, have a seat at the table. But you also need to work with someone with a lot of experience in this area who spent a lot of time speaking to US examiners so that the patent is written in the best way possible in order to ensure that it's patentable. To the extent possible, at least to ensure it's complying with the US Patent and Trademark Office rules around the Alice decision and other decisions. Any questions about that? Okay. So what is not patentable? Well, basically content. So music, images, books, or video, those are all protectable by copyright. Content in general is protectable by copyright. Software code is technically protectable by copyright, but copyright's a very narrow right. Copyright only protects you if someone copies your idea exactly. So if they make a few changes, you're out of luck. Patents, on the other hand, protect your idea. So if you want to protect your idea, you have to file for a patent. Copyright won't help you. Names, logos, and slogans are protected by trademarks. So trademarks are marks under which you trade or do business. Coke, Coca-Cola, Coke the real thing, the Coca-Cola logo. Those are all examples of trademarks. You also can't file for a patent for anything you want to keep secret. The patent is a contract between the public, represented by the government, and specifically by the examiner at the government patent office, which could be the US Patent and Trademark Office, and you. And the idea is that if you bring an idea filed in a patent application that is in a patentable category and is novel or new and not obvious or inventive, then you will receive a patent, which is a monopoly right, limited to 20 years from the date of filing, for your idea. In order to be certain that your idea is worthy of this, and also in order to uphold your end of the bargain, which is to describe your idea to the public, you actually have to describe your idea in detail in your patent filing. If you want to keep something secret, I mean secret for all time, not just secret until, say, the patent application publishes, or if you only file in the US, secret until the patent is granted and then publishes. If you want to keep something secret, you can't put into a patent. So trade secrets need to be kept separate. And this is something you have to have a discussion with someone who has a lot of experience in this area and someone who can help you kind of sort through, do you want to keep it secret or do you want to file for a patent? I don't recommend keeping as a trade secret anything that the end user can get their hands on. So if it's in an app, for example, or a downloadable software, a hardware product that the user can use, can play with, forget it, it's reverse engineerable. Even computer chips can be reverse engineered. The only things you can potentially keep secret are things that are not accessible to the user, for example, on a separate server. And even then, you have to think about really if you want to file for a patent or not. So what is a patent anyway, and why do you need it? Well, this is the summary slide of all of these different aspects of a patent. By the way, one thing I was reminded to tell you about is if you do have particular questions on VRAR and patents, then we will be sending you an ebook just for participating in the webinar, completely free. It's our thank you to you for giving us your time and attention. We really do appreciate it. But if you want to have the deck, which is this PowerPoint, put your email, please, either into the Q&A or else please put it into the chat. Now, you also saw the chat there, I believe. Let me just see if it's still up. Yes, it's still up there. Please put your email address here to receive the deck and or to have a call. Okay, so I just put that into the chat. Hopefully that'll spark something and you'll be able to see it. If you put it into the chat, only I will see it. Of course, you can also put it into the Q&A. So, getting back to the summary slide. A patent is a form of idea protection. You can block others with your patent, but others can also block you with theirs, so it's important to file. Patents are tools for defense, but also for offense. In other words, they go both ways. Oh, I see someone put in their email address. Thanks so much. I'll definitely be sending you the deck, and also we can set up a time to speak. Patents also can help increase your startup's valuation, so they're important in that sense as well. So they're an asset. They're a form of property. You patent your idea by preparing and filing your patent application, describe your idea with text and drawings, you submit it for examination, and then you see what kind of patent you get. Again, I'd be happy to go over the process in detail with you. Find out if your idea is patentable. It has to be novel and or non-obvious. Novel simply means new, non-obvious means it has to be inventive or have that wow factor. And of course, you have to be the first one to file. So again, this is just the summary, the overview of all the different aspects of a patent. You can get a patent in 4 simple steps. You do a search to see if you are first. Of course, you need to search both patents and non-patent materials. So you could just use regular Google for searching for non-patent material, but also there's something called Google Patent Search. If you Google Patent Search, you'll be taken to a link. It's just like a regular keyword search in Google. You put in a few keywords and you get back answers, really simple to use. Don't forget there is that 18-month black hole during which you don't know what other people have filed for. You then prepare your drawings in text. I'll show you an example of a patent drawing real soon. It's very simple to do. Basically, we're talking about blocks and lines, especially for software. Hard ones can be a little more complex. You might need to include a circuit diagram, but again, not terribly difficult. You file your patent application and the examiner checks it. Now you'd think after all this, you could get a patent really quickly, right? Because the first 3 steps are pretty fast, but that last step is the problem. So you can see here, the first 3 steps go real quick. But that last step, where the examiner, for example, at the US Patent and Trademark Office checks your patent application, that can take 1 to 5 years or more. It is slow because of the backlog, because they have to get to your idea, because there are just so many ideas out there, especially in the VR AR space. It simply isn't possible for them to quickly examine everything. The US provisional application is the best way to start this process. The US provisional application enables you to file fast. It only lasts for a year, right? So it gets your foot in the door and you get that all-important date. Remember, first to file wins. You want to have that date. The provisional enables you to file in the US and get that date quickly. It has the fewest regulations and rules, so you can file fast and beat the competition. You can change your patent within the year. So let's say within that year you pivot, you have updates. You can add information that you want to add before you file your application in the US or in other countries. It has fewer requirements. Basically, if you can whiteboard an idea, you can file for a provisional. You can certainly at least do the drawings, and the rest of the process is not hugely difficult because of the fewer requirements for a provisional. The provisional application is cheaper, but it still gives you full coverage for that 1 year for the date. So again, the provisional lasts a year. It gives you that all-important date for 1 year. That date can be used all over the world. That date counts all over the world. China, Europe, US, Canada, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Australia. Basically, any country in the world that has a patent office will accept that date. So it can give you that same protection for 1 year, the protection of that date, but it's much cheaper. So that's another reason I recommend filing the provisional, is it's very good for your budget, as well as enabling you to file more quickly. This is an example of a patent drawing. This patent drawing is actually from a Facebook patent for the newsfeed with Mark Zuckerberg as one of the inventors. And what you can see here is that there's a few user devices connected to a network, which is always shown as a fluffy cloud. I jokingly say it's a rule. It's not a rule. People have asked me if you have to show the network as a cloud. No, you don't, but everyone always does. Through this network cloud, these user devices are connected to a social network provider. That's a server. And the server is running a mini feed engine. So this is it. Very, very simple. Patent drawings do not have to be complicated. They just have to be clear. People asking me, how many patent drawings do you need to have? And I would say for any patent application, including a provisional, you need to have at least 7 to 10 patent drawings, of which at least 2 to 3 should be system drawings. So these are system drawings. It shows a system. User device connected to a server through a network. That's a system. You would also want to file a number of functional or flow diagrams. These are also called process diagrams. So they can be as simple as blocks with arrows, step 1, step 2, step 3. You can also do a state diagram. Basically, any kind of flow diagram that makes sense and is clear, you can file. You do not have to make a really fancy, complicated process diagram or a fancy, complicated system diagram for that matter. So can you do this yourself? Sorry. Well, you need to know the filing. First of all, startups can be complicated, as can patents. So patents are about as complicated as many other issues that you run into as a startup. So you have to have a strategy. When you're developing your technology, when you're deciding how you're going to approach the market and how you're going to market, when you're deciding about your sales, you have to have a strategy for these things. You have to have a strategy for raising money. All of these aspects of software life require you to have a strategy. Patents and idea protection are no different. You must have a strategy to be able to protect your valuable ideas and also to decide when to file and what to file. You also have to be confident you're making the right choice. Not making a decision, just waiting, sitting on your hands, not protecting your ideas. Ultimately, you'll end up making a decision because that decision will be taken from you. And that decision will effectively be to not have patent protection because someone else could file before you. Someone else could publish before you. Remember, if you publish your idea, you have a 1-year grace period for that publication. But if someone else publishes a similar idea or the same idea before you, you're out of luck. You can no longer file for a patent. So again, that decision has been taken away from you. You can't get that patent. Or if you publish your idea and you decide, you know, within 1 year, I'll file in the US, and then you miss that deadline. There is no grace period for the grace period. You have 1 year, and even a day later is too late. You can't file for that patent. So again, if you wait until the end of that year, you've made a decision, and that decision is not to file a patent. Or you want to get protection outside the US and you publish your idea first. Well, now you can't get protection outside the US. You can't file for a patent. So remember, you need to actively make the right choice so you don't accidentally make a choice that you don't want. So here's how we can help. We have fixed price packages. Most patent attorneys work on hourly based fees, so you never know how much things are going to cost. You only pay for what you need with KISS Patent because we offer a fixed price for everything. We have different packages tailored to your needs. You have full control over what you get. Don't pay for something you don't need. And we give full support for startups. We have tons of experience with software companies and startups and also hardware companies and startups. And we have a lot of experience in the VR AR space. We give you full support to protect your idea. So our basic patent package is $2,500. And it covers the US provisional application process for you. And you can also get a 10% discount if you order it with our Webinar 10 promo code. But for this webinar, we have a special discount offer. It's a limited time only offer, so definitely email us if you have questions. Let's hop on that call so I can answer them, because this offer will last for a very short period of time. It's 20% off our basic patent package. So instead of $2,500, you'd only have to spend $2,000. You would add the webinar promo code at the checkout process. Now, again, if you have questions, you want to get started, you want to file your provisional, you're not certain what to do, you want to get that discount, email me. I can work with you. I can help you out with that. But I can also explain to you what's included, and I can send you an electronic invoice if you'd rather do that. So this will enable you to protect your valuable idea, file that provisional, get your foot in the door, be first to file, and have 1 year to decide how you want to continue the patent process, all for only $2,000. So it's a really awesome price, and I am looking forward to speaking to you more about it. Now then, as a quick recap, put in your email address. I will send you the deck, and we can also set up a time to have a call so I can answer your questions about the price or about anything else having to do with provisional applications, patents, anything else I can help you with idea protection. After this call, we will be sending you the ebook, which is separate from the deck. It's not the deck, it's something else that gives you more valuable information about VR and AR patents and how to protect your viable VR AR ideas. That's our free thank you to you, because we're so happy that you spent the time to hang out with us and to talk about patents and VR and AR. And we will also be sending you a link to the recording. Please feel free to share the link with other folks. We're always happy to answer people's questions. If you know people need help, please let me know, and we're happy to help out. So that is it for me for now.